Thank you, Jamie. And good afternoon to each of you. Thank you for coming and joining us. So we have confirmed 803 cumulative cases of COVID-19 here in Lafayette Parish since March 18th. We do not have current data on tests and fatalities from the Louisiana Department of Health at this time. Yesterday, the governor announced that our state will move to phase 2 reopening this Friday. This is a welcome development and a tribute to the hardworking men and women in our healthcare ecosystem and our local business community who are making every effort to protect the health and safety of our people and our parish. Starting Friday, as per the governor, our restaurants and bars with food licenses will be able to operate at 50% capacity. Most of the businesses that remain closed will be allowed to open at 25% capacity. We are still seeing community spread of COVID-19 in our parish, although we understand that transmission is no longer widespread. We have a number of workplace-related outbreaks. The owners of these businesses are working closely with the Louisiana Department of Health to institute the appropriate protocols in response to these infection hotspots. We have made significant progress, but we are not out of the woods yet. Our diligence and vigilance is still needed to continue and expand upon the success we have achieved up to this point. As we've discussed many times, we are not only facing a public health emergency, we are facing an economic emergency as well. We've had more than 30,000 initial claims for unemployment filed here in our parish. We are seeing the impacts of that economic emergency in financial and budget impacts on the city of Lafayette. I am committed to protecting the finances of our great city. If we continue at our present levels of spending, Lafayette's entire $50 million savings account, known as the fund balance, would be completely gone within 2 years. At the same time, the city would be running at an annual deficit of more than $15 million. It's a recipe for a major fiscal disaster in a very short period of time. And I won't let that happen to our city. As we've discussed before, our $50 million savings account, or fund balance, is losing $18 million due to the budgeting of the previous city parish council. Our current sales tax estimate, taking into account COVID-19 and oil prices, forecasts another $10 million loss. This means our savings account could be depleted by nearly 60% by the end of the current fiscal year on October 31st. Even if sales tax collections improve significantly, we're still faced with spending half of our fund balance this year. Like every family in Lafayette Parish, our government must live within its means. We can't spend more money than we have, and the money we do have needs to be spent on our core priorities or for investments that can help fundamentally change the equation. This doesn't mean that I think all the things our government does aren't important. It means that as mayor president, I must choose the most important things that are critical to the safety and future prosperity of our city and of our parish. As we stand here today, we simply cannot afford many things that we enjoy and that enrich our community. We simply have to make difficult choices in a very timely manner. I've been meeting with directors of all LCG departments, along with our Chief Administrative Officer, Sidra Wingirter, and our Chief Financial Officer, Lori Toops, who's with us here today. Directors have been instructed to find budget reductions equivalent to 20% between now and the end of the year. Only police and fire protection, drainage and roads will be spared this budgetary operating standard, and even then, we will still be seeking savings that do not negatively impact our operations in the current budget year. We must find efficiencies and budget reductions for this year as we plan for the coming budget year. In all, We have to find a minimum of $10 million in reductions across LCG that provide general fund relief in our current budget year in order to put our city back on a sustainable financial path. I am hopeful that we will see significant federal funding come through from the state, but there is no guarantee. Also, current guidelines do not allow parishes to recover lost revenues. In any case, we are prepared to adjust our course appropriately if and when substantial relief appears. Until then, we are tightening our belt significantly and looking for opportunities to reorganize our operations in ways that create more efficient processes and raise the potential for increased revenue from providing more accessible and better services. This morning, I accepted the retirement of our longtime Director of Parks and Recreations, Senator Gerald Boudreaux. I have great respect for Gerald, and I wish him all the best. I understand that the measures we may well need to take with respect to our parks and recreation centers are heartbreaking, and I certainly understand his decision. This is a challenging time for all of us. We've worked long and hard for many good things that enrich the life of our community. It's hard to bear when we think of all the setbacks we have faced. This is simply another one, and we will overcome this too. I look forward to working with our council members in the upcoming budget process to address the fiscal challenges we face as a city and as a parish. Together, we will chart a course that allows us to protect the financial status of LCG while we plan for a more transparent, efficient, and accountable road to recovery. Let's please take a moment to pray for all of those that have lost their lives and their livelihoods to this very deadly virus. Please join me. Thank you. I have time for your questions. Now it's council night, so you got to be brief and brilliant. Can't hear you.
Is it true y'all plan on closing recreation centers, and is that some of why Senator Boudreaux retired?
That's a fair question, Claire. You know, I know I heard some rumblings of some stories about that last week, later in the week and over the weekend. The truth is no decisions have been made, but also the truth is everything's on the table. So we have to, as I said earlier, we only have so much money coming in, and we can't spend money that we don't have. What I'm eager, just as eager, what I'm eager for, as much as finding fiscal relief, maybe cutting spending, is how can we be innovative? How can we bring new ideas to all of our departments, whether it's parks and recreation, to police, to fire, to how we attack making sure everybody has a voice in the community? We should always be thinking outside the box. We should always be thinking about ways to do more with less, to provide services to those that we are so blessed to lead, so blessed to serve. And Parks and Recs is no different. So everything's on the table to answer your question.
The reasons he resigned?
I think it's probably a number of things, but on that note, and I'm glad you brought that up, Claire, let us all, everybody watching, everybody listening, everybody here, when you go to bed at night, say a prayer for Senator Boudreaux. Because I'm going to tell you something. For 36 years, this gentleman served our community with distinction. For 36 years, he woke up and he gave all he had to Lafayette Consolidated Government, to the city, and to the parish of Lafayette. And I am honored that I had the brief moment to serve with him. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Was it a surprise that he resigned?
No. Yes, sir.
Josh, you said we'd have to tighten our belts, except for investments that could fundamentally change the equation. Can you give us an idea of what an investment like that would look like?
I'm sorry, Christian and Claire, I can barely hear for whatever reason.
So you mentioned we have to tighten our belts except for investments that would fundamentally change the equation. Can you give us an example of what that would be?
The second part, the investments maybe? Yeah, great question. So it just kind of goes on to what we were talking about, finding ways to do more with less. We discussed some possible options last week, and really, if you look on the innovation side, take public-private partnerships, for example. Think of associations. If you want to use rec centers as an example, or the Science Museum, or the Hyman Center. These are all examples where, I know we had to make some tough decisions this fiscal year, which ends October 31st, but that doesn't mean that we have to keep these operations closed forever. That just means we have to do something different. And I'll tell you, when you look at the Office of Community Development and you look at that director, Hollis Conway, and all of the conceptual thinking that he brings to the table and the energy, you put leadership like that in a director's position, and I feel like those answers will come naturally. Those outside-the-box thinking, those outside-the-box measures will come naturally through the process. So I'm just so thankful for all of our LCG employees in the Office of Community Development, the Office of Parks and Recs, all our departments across Lafayette Consolidated Government. Just really blessed to serve with these fine men and women. I knew you had a question.
You figured
You
that
ran
out.
in to ask that.
So was there any indication that Senator Boudreaux wanted to retire prior to this? I know Claire had asked a similar question before, but was there any prior discussions with you or the council that he was looking to retire?
He's been with us 36 years. He probably was expedited over the last couple of days, but we can, it's an HR personnel decision or situation this time. It'll play itself out. But, I wish him all the best. He's a great guy.
Resignation?
After this morning, we had a little talk and came to the realization that it's probably time to go ahead and retire, and I respect that decision. And again, I go back on what we just talked about. And I'm going to say this very carefully, Claire, because anything I'd say, the last thing I want is to take away from the distinguished service that this gentleman gave to our community. And I'm going to stand by that. I respect him too much to indulge a negative conversation. Not saying you're going there.
But did you ask for him to resign?
I think I just answered that.
You really didn't answer
Okay.
directly. Yes or no? Did you ask him to resign?
I had conversation with him. Keep in mind, he's retiring, so he's not resigning, just for a point of clarification. But we've come to the realization that it would be better to bring in new ideas.
From what I've heard, Josh, when you came in January, several state senators voiced their support for Gerald in the sense that he was on the way out when he came in. Is that true? And did those same group of state reps get involved in his retirement?
Well, it's kind of two-folded question. Let me address the first one first. Gerald appreciates a lot of support, in my appreciation of it, has garnered a lot of support in the legislature, and that's due to his own accomplishments, not just the fact that he's a state senator. So I think it's only natural, and maybe his personality lends that support too. He's a good person. So yeah, there's a lot of people that I talked to that had good things to say about him. It was my decision though to keep him on. I had no discussions in regard to the state delegate, the Lafayette delegation, or any state senators or representatives about this decision. No.
Are you worried about any type of political backlash from Baton Rouge if you did indeed, behind closed doors, ask him to resign?
I'm glad you asked that, because that's kind of the question probably a lot of people would ask. Oh, but when you sit in the chair that I sit in, when you sit in the position that I sit in, you should not make decisions based on political ramifications. If I had to make decisions just on politics, there would be a lot of decisions people look at me and say, well, what are you doing? But that's not, everybody brings to the table their own leadership style. I just choose to make decisions as in the capacity of mayor president, not as a political pundit. Any other questions?
I
Yes,
think
sir.
a lot of people are surprised.
You're going to
I think a lot of
overtalk
people,
Christian. He had his hand up, doggone it.
a lot of people are
Okay, he
surprised.
deferred to you.
I think a lot of people are surprised that this is the second director that is retiring, resigning underneath your administration. What's your response to the public?
Yeah, I don't have a response except that I'm going to continue to serve the best way that I can, and that it's an honor every single day that I wake up, that God gives me another day, Chris, that I can serve in this capacity. It truly is. So, but it's a fair question. I appreciate that. So hope you guys join us tonight at the City Parish Council meetings. I think we have a joint meeting as well. You have some information that you want to put out. So I appreciate you. May God continue to bless us, and may God bless our great parish. Thank you.